My parents are people who think that.
Oh, hold on.
Anyone?
Yeah, I think it's fine. Yeah, this is the new one. We're at 7 o'clock. Nobody's coming online.
Right. So we get for event or John, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, for me.
Okay. Has everyone had the opportunity to review the regular meeting minutes? Is there any comments on the meeting minutes from May 7th? Dave, I'll make a motion to accept the, Dave, any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Okay, that's everybody, thank you. All right, so the way this is gonna work, this is a public hearing, we're gonna be talking about the plan of conservation development, here in a few minutes. We have two regular audience of citizens as well. So we're gonna open with just a regular audience of citizens. If anyone wants to talk about anything that's not on the agenda, so not POCD related, you can bring that up at this time. There'll be another one at the end of the meeting. And then in the middle, where we talk about the bulk of the information will be discussed about POCD. So if anyone from the audience wants to make a comment, please take your name and your address.
I'm very good. Just one more question in conjunction we were speaking about. That was already approved and it's going to be changed, correct?
Yeah, so if you can comment earlier, we were talking about the last zoning regulation revisions about the certificate of mailing versus certified mail. So yes, those are completed and are now.
Mhm.
Is there any other comments on anything that's not PSPD related? Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to open the public hearing up on our 2026 plan of conservation and development. Mary Kay, you'll notice that you want to read those.
Yep. Legal notice posted in the Willimantic Chronicle, May 15th and May 22nd. The Columbia PZC will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, May 26, 2026 at 7 p.m. as a hybrid meeting for the following. The 2026 Town of Columbia Plan of Conservation and Development information and how to attend the meeting is available at columbiact.gov. If you are unable to attend the hearings, you may submit written correspondence to the attention of the Columbia Planning and Zoning Commission, 323 Route 87, Columbia, Connecticut, 06237, or by email to jguskowski@columbiact.gov. To be entered into the record, correspondence must be received prior to the close of the public hearing. Justin Renadu, Chairman.
All right. So some initial comments. First of all, I'll hand it over to John in a few minutes. He's going to do a presentation. We have some extra copies if anyone wants to steal that. I can't see it, or you can move up to the front. Feel free to sit in the front so you can see a little bit better. I want to make a couple comments. The first is we're ahead of schedule. So we have a deadline for more or less on June 27th of this year to really get everything finalized, and we're ahead of schedule. I think we're on task. So I really appreciate everyone's input. John, from all the work that he's done, survey, all of the public's input, all of the different commissions and boards that have given input, and all the commission members on planning and zoning as well. I think it's been a really, really good process and something that we should all be proud of. Really showing that we can all work together and update the plan of conservation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it over to John so he can present the material. I think we'll see is there's probably going to be some formatting changes. There could be some input from the public, input from the commission on some final changes to POCD. So when we get to that point of opening up the comments, please feel free to ask any questions or to make any comments. I'm sure there's some grammatical and formatting things that will be updated, but it looks like we've come a long way with it from where we started. So, John, if you don't mind going through the presentation with me for you.
Sure, thank you. Can everyone hear me all right? Okay, so for the record, my name is John Guskowski. I'm the town planner. I've been working with the commission for the last year and a half on developing this update to the plan of conservation and development. We're going to go through this in just a bit of detail. We're not going to be exhaustive. And based on the folks in the room, you guys have already seen and been involved in this process. So we appreciate your involvement throughout. First of all, what is a plan of conservation and development? This is a mandatory document that was created by Connecticut general statutes. Every municipality in the state is required to update and adopt a new plan of conservation and development every 10 years. In Connecticut general statutes, section 8-23 includes everything about the process and what a plan of conservation and development must contain, which is a very, very long laundry list. The municipality must look at its current and future needs for housing, for infrastructure, for clean water, clean air, for open space and natural protection of natural resources, for education, for municipal facilities, the whole broad range of topics, including relatively recent additions for climate change and sea level rise and things like that. That Connecticut General Assembly added to mandatory considerations of the plan of conservation and development. We also must look at, again, this is a decade-long plan. It is meant to establish the framework and sort of philosophical underpinnings of where the town would like to go over the next 10 years and should guide discussions about community investment in infrastructure, in open space, in municipal facilities, and that sort of thing. This is a document that is advisory. It is not a regulatory document, strictly speaking. It is developed exclusively by the Planning Commission. In this case, Columbia, like many towns in Connecticut, has a joint Planning and Zoning Commission, but the Connecticut General Statutes charges this to the planning element of the Planning and Zoning Commission. There is no specific process for the adoption of the development and the adoption of the plan. That is left to each municipality. However, again, it is adopted by the Planning and Zoning Commission. It is not adopted by town meeting. It is not adopted by the selectmen. It is not adopted by referendum. It is adopted by this body following a public hearing, which is happening tonight, or which is opening tonight. And we can get into the actual process that happened. But again, each municipality can sort of define its own process for developing and writing the plan. The plan is used in a number of ways. It's first and is required to coordinate with state and regional plans. So the Capital Region Council of Governments, which is the collection of 30-something municipalities in Greater Hartford, including Columbia, developed their own plan that establishes priorities such as transportation corridors, open space corridors, housing, economic development, and that sort of thing. As well as the state has a plan of conservation and development that has certain philosophical underpinnings about protection of resources, about development of equitable housing, and that sort of thing. And so our plan is required to consider the regional and the state plans when we develop it. Anytime the municipality wants to change its zoning regulations or change its zoning map, which is to say if we want to rezone a portion of town from residential to commercial or vice versa, we are required to consult the Plan of Conservation and Development and look for elements of harmony or disharmony. And the commission must make a formal finding for municipal investments, for zone changes, and for map changes on if that investment or divestment or change is harmonious with the Plan of Conservation and Development. In the case of municipal investments, so for instance, the town has bonded, several $1 million for the HVAC improvements at the school. That was a substantial municipal investment that had to come to the Planning and Zoning Commission for their commentary and their review of how that investment harmonized or didn't with the Plan of Conservation and Development. In that case, investing in a healthy environment in which our kids should grow up and learn was found to be harmonious with the Plan of Conservation and Development. If it did not, if for instance the selectmen or someone had proposed that, let's get rid of the recreation complex on Hennequin and we'll put up a nuclear reactor or something like that, that would have to come forward to Planning and Zoning Commission. If the Planning and Zoning Commission found that disharmonious with the plan, then the town meeting vote would function actually as a veto of the decision, and then town meeting would require a 3/4 supermajority to override that finding of disharmony with the Plan of Conservation and Development. So this does have, in some real ways, some teeth when it comes to municipal investments or divestments of property. It's very, very useful to have elements of the Plan of Conservation and Development address certain anticipated needs for open space acquisition, for housing, for sidewalk development, for trail development, whatever that is. And seeking grant money, it's extraordinarily helpful for us in preparing a grant for some state or federal investment in Columbia to be able to point to the Plan of Conservation and Development and say, look, this is a goal of ours. Please, help us with this fundraising effort to make this trail happen, make this open space happen, make this school expansion happen, whatever it is. If it's in the Plan of Conservation and Development, that is very, very useful. And so it is, again, not primarily a regulatory document. It's meant to form a philosophical backbone of where the town wants to go for the next 10 years, but it does have some real world impacts when it comes to making municipal investments. So again, as I said, municipalities do not have sort of a blueprint. You must do these 15 things while you're preparing your Plan of Conservation and Development. The plan process is very open-ended. But so what Columbia chose to do, again, as Justin said, the last plan was adopted in June of 2016. So we're just ahead of schedule for before our 10 years is up. The Planning and Zoning Commission decided to write the plan in-house. My firm, I'm a consultant to the town, Tyke Planning and Policy Group, was brought in back in 2023, I believe, beginning of 2023. And one of the tasks we were assigned was to help prepare this update to the Plan of Conservation and Development. So it was done essentially by in-house forces. Many commissions in different towns will establish sort of an ad hoc subcommittee in which you've got someone from economic development and someone from conservation and someone from this body and that body, and they sort of come together and advise the Planning and Zoning Commission about their process. In this case, the Planning and Zoning Commission was generally happy with the sort of the philosophical direction of the prior plan and chose to basically have a process of for generating the document by the committee, by the Planning and Zoning Commission as a whole. And they oversaw that and broke the project down thematically. And so we had a discussion on natural resources, we had a discussion on housing, we had a discussion on transportation, we had a discussion on municipal facilities. And in each of those discussions, which again were held at a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, stakeholders were invited to provide their input to the Planning and Zoning Commission on that topic. And I think they generated a lot of good ideas and a lot of open discussion. So that was the process here. There was also a well-participated community survey that was put out both on SurveyMonkey online, and hard copies were also made available. That those were also tabulated to help provide community input in terms of developing the vision. And again, as I said, there was stakeholder input on these various thematic things. The job of the commission is not necessarily to basically, put their finger in the air and sort of say which way are the political winds blowing. Their job is not to do necessarily what would be most popular or most expedient. Their job is to look into the future and weigh things like community input, like community history, like our economic development needs, like our demographics. Are we aging? Are we getting younger? Our child population growing or shrinking? So they have to look at actual real world demographic dynamics, as well as market conditions. We could say, oh, what would be fantastic if we had the Microsoft World Headquarters and a Whole Foods right here in the center. That would be great. Everyone hold up your hand and we can agree on doing that. The global market might not agree that Columbia is the right place for a Microsoft headquarters or something like that. So it doesn't, in certain circumstances, it doesn't necessarily matter what might be popular. It is what is realistic and what is possible for Columbia, and balance that against, again, the wishes of the public and that sort of thing. As part of the public input, we did an analysis of our SWOT, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I'm not going to go through all of these, but we received a lot of important input about the things that people like about Columbia, things that people want to enhance and see continued about Columbia, our parks, our open spaces, our well-managed lake community, the highly engaged population, our municipal resources. Lots of opportunities, as well as some weaknesses that we're very dependent on our residential tax base. We don't have a ton of commercial development, no real major employers. And so these are the things that the commission has to consider when looking at establishing goals for the next 10 years. So this was one of the exercises. Very briefly, you guys are much more familiar with the ins and outs of Columbia than I am, so I'm not really, breaking any news here. Obviously, we're about a little over 5,000 population. Our median age is relatively high relative to much of Connecticut. Connecticut's median age is a little south of 40, and so we're probably almost 15 years older than Connecticut as a whole. Relatively well-to-do, over 122,000 per household. Low poverty rates, so Columbia economically is doing relatively well as this sort of community. Median home values are above state median, and we're extraordinarily owner-occupied. This is a community where in Connecticut, it's roughly 2/3, 1/3 owner-occupied and renters. Columbia is over 90% owner-occupied. A little bit about our economic status. I was having a debate in a different town recently about being called a bedroom community, if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But broadly speaking, Columbia would be classified as a bedroom community, which is to say we export more jobs, more people live here than work here. So there are roughly 900 something people working in town, 359 businesses. But for the most part, our population that lives here in the evening, that sleeps here, works elsewhere. So we export about 1,700 of our working population to other communities. The table on the right is basically the industries that are represented by workers in town. This is not necessarily that there are 790 government jobs in town. 790 people in Columbia are in the government sector and that sort of thing. So that represents basically what people in Columbia do. The focus of the new plan, which again, the commission was broadly supportive and broadly happy with the structure of the old plan, which was thematically based, but it had a lot of chapters. It had 16 some chapters where, open space and conservation were treated separately, and that was treated separately from natural resources, and that was treated separately from lake management. So what we had done was we basically took the same framework of the plan and collapsed it into a smaller number of more omnibus categories. So we have 6 thematic chapters: natural resources and open space conservation, community, cultural, recreational resources, housing, economic development, agriculture, and then transportation, utilities, and community facilities. And so those chapters, and those are the order in the table of contents. This was the major themes or the major topic areas. And in each topic area, which we'll go through briefly, we had a number of big picture goals and then a number of action items that would be under each of those goals. So in the realm of open space and conservation, which again included things like natural resource protection and the lake management. Some of the key topic areas that we looked at was focusing on agriculture as an economic driver, being agriculture is one of our key natural resources, the good quality soils and agricultural heritage we have here. The Mono Pond Trail. Mono Pond has gotten a lot of attention over the last 10 years, and we'd like to continue to build on that. Keeping forward progress on acquiring key open spaces. Over the last couple of years, we acquired a couple of key pieces of open space. One that tacked on to the Hannah-Quinn Road Recreation Facility and allowed access out onto 66. Certainly protecting the water quality of Columbia Lake is an extremely important priority, given that is not only a population center, but certainly an economic driver of the community in terms of property values and tax base. And related to that, to minimize the impact of watershed development. So the sort of nutrient management that we do, particularly in the lake watershed, is something that should be continued and strengthened, as well as increasing protections for wildlife corridors and riparian areas. So developing away from river corridors and making sure that our natural resources, our cold water streams and things like that are well protected. So we added some mapping in there, looking at some of the potential existing and current existing and future open space connections, as well as doing some analysis of our natural resource areas and flagging some of those for higher level of protection. The next section was about community, cultural, and recreational resources. And in here, we talked about the need to preserve the historic resources, particularly historic buildings and facilities in Columbia, enhancing our community cultural resources, particularly Zegda Farm, which is sort of a multi-purpose community resource, continuing, again, to invest in the cultural resources of our recreation parks and our recreation facilities to make sure that people have a sense of place and pride in community, as well as protecting and enhancing the town's historic cemeteries, which are variously struggling in terms of management and maintenance for the future. So those were key major goals for recreational resources or cultural and community resources. The third area was housing. Again, Columbia is a relatively well-to-do community, very, very high rates of home ownership. What that leaves out, though, is a rental economy and affordable housing. Columbia, generally speaking, again, as a relatively affluent community, has relatively low cost burden. We're under 20% for our housing cost burden for both owners and renters. So which is to say, if your cost burden, you're paying more than 30% of your annual income on your housing opportunities. And so we are in better shape than the capital region or the state as a whole. But that still leaves us short of affordable housing sort of going forward. And I'm sure many of you with children or adult children are realizing that it's very, very difficult for young professionals, people coming out of college, to come back to Columbia. There's really not many housing opportunities for them. And similarly, as we're aging, and we have our families in a 4 or 5 bedroom house, families all gone, where there's now just 1 or 2 of us. And in fact, I think something like between 60% and 2/3 of our households now are 1 or 2 person households. So there's an increasing disconnect between the size of our housing stock, 3, 4, 5 bedroom, and our actual households, which are, in most cases, 1 or 2 people. And we don't have enough opportunities for downsizing. So for people to move out of that larger house into a more suitable sort of retirement facility, not a retirement facility, but a home that would be more suitable for aging in place. So looking at some of those issues, we want to make sure that we're ensuring adequate housing for people of all ages and incomes in Columbia, which means opportunities across the board, not just for families with 3, 4, 5 kids, particularly with for focus on young people and people aging in place, allowing for a variety of affordable housings, as well as promoting changes to our zoning regulations that would sort of get the town out of the way of developers who are looking to create new housing opportunities in town, as well as encouraging a more diverse housing stock to not only meet our own needs, but also people who are looking to contribute to Columbia into the future. Economic development being an important goal as well. So this is one of our focus areas. Looking to recognizing again the market realities that Columbia isn't necessarily on anyone's target list for major large scale developments, certainly not larger industrial developments, something that might be water intensive. I don't think necessarily we're going to be a target of data centers and things like that that need like large water supplies. So the focus here would be growing our grant list from within, encouraging business growth from our existing growth and existing business stock, including those smaller businesses, your home-based businesses, or your 1 or 2 person businesses, in order to have an opportunity to continue to thrive and grow here in Columbia. Looking at housing as economic development, because as you bring more people to town, you make opportunities for more people to live in town. Those people need places to shop and to eat and to work. And so having more people in town generates the need for more business, as well as promoting tourism by making Columbia a destination, perhaps through our trail systems, through some of our natural resources and eco-based tourism. And I think the last of the 5 areas was agriculture, which we talked a little bit about in natural resources, but agriculture is sort of that business that is both a natural resource contributor and an economic contributor. It is something that serves many purposes, and Columbia's economic heritage is a very, very important contributor, not only to our culture but also our economy. And so the goals being to continue to preserve agricultural lands in order to protect the soil, maintain our ability to use the land proactively to grow and retain the historic cultural heritage of Columbia, to make sure that we continue to engage with the farms and the agricultural community to make sure that our regulations and our approach to encouraging farming is harmonious with current farming practices, as well as finding ways to help diversify farming operations to make sure that they're economically viable. Because the best way to preserve a farm is to make it profitable, make it a going concern. I'm sorry, this is the last key thematic area, which is transportation, utilities, community facilities, in which we sort of look at our roads, bridges, infrastructure, as well as our utility connections, broadband internet, phone, public sewer, public water, both of which are non-existent in Columbia, as well as community facilities like the hall we're in right now. And the goal being to make sure that we have not only safe current roads, but also alternative transportation networks. So things like bike lanes, things like trails that can actually get you from here to there. Considering sidewalks, although we don't really have a strong history of sidewalk development here. Certainly maintaining our existing utilities and making it possible to expand our telecommunications infrastructure, because one of the key ways that a small community, particularly in the post-COVID era, can continue to grow is if we have strong data infrastructure, if we have good broadband, people can work from wherever. And so encouraging more people to, to move here and work here essentially from home, to contribute to our community and our economy. And obviously data infrastructure is very important for that. Making sure that our town facilities are sufficient. Do we have enough parks and playgrounds? Do we have enough meeting space? Do we have sufficient library facilities, recreation facilities, fire, emergency management, that sort of thing? So making sure that we are sort of keeping our hand on the pulse of what our community needs are. And then certainly housing and transportation options for seniors, which is a role that the government has continued to play an important role in. Part of the transportation infrastructure that we're going to be taking a particular look at over the next 10 years are the two key intersections in town, or two of the most important key intersections in town. First being the one right here on 66 and 87, which is sort of a weird offset that creates traffic problems, as well as the major intersection on 6 and 66, just outside Willimantic, which is long overdue for a redesign. So those are going to be important priorities, and we'll certainly use this plan going forward to seek grant money and federal funding support and that sort of thing for intersection improvements. So that's broad, high level look at some of the key goals in each of the thematic areas. And so moving forward, we are basically looking towards breaking down each of those tasks, each of those broad goal areas into sort of bite-sized tasks. And we've established a fairly lengthy implementation list that we'll look at in a second, that sort of focuses on sort of the piece by piece to-do list that is not only for planning and zoning. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of regulatory change recommended that planning and zoning will be very involved in, but there's lots of other tasks that are going to be assigned to the Lake Association and the Board of Selectmen and the Recreation Commission and the Conservation Commission and Economic Development and Public Works, and everyone will have essentially a list of tasks to do through this plan. And the goal is to, once we come to 2036, 10 years from now, that we look back and say, yeah, we were able to preserve those elements of the town which make Columbia special. We're able to grow in those areas that are suitable and make sense both geographically and in terms of the specific land uses, and in increasing as much as we can the opportunity for people to stay here throughout their life cycles, and the opportunity for new residents and new families to come and participate in civic life in Columbia. So we have at the end of the plan what we call the implementation matrix, which again is basically a very long, fairly detailed to-do list, which is drawn from the thematic chapters here. And so each of the tasks is basically given a few things. It's given the text of the action item, what needs to be done, and this is from the cultural resources section. So considering the development or adoption of a demolition delay ordinance to better protect historic properties. That is the bite-sized to-do list. And so we added to that, whose responsibility is it? In this case, the Board of Selectmen, who is responsible for developing and adopting ordinances. What's the priority, and what is the likely magnitude of cost? So we kind of can break all of these tasks down by whose responsibility is it, how quickly is this task needs to get done, and roughly for planning purposes, what is it going to cost? In the case of an ordinance, that's fairly low cost. You throw a couple of hours at your town attorney, he drafts something up, there you go. It's a couple $100, we're good. So other things like indoor sports facility, which was something that was pointed out as a future need, that's going to be quite a bit more expensive. And so that's given a higher value and would be assigned to the Recreation Commission working with the Board of Selectmen, and so on. And so each of those chapters that we sort of went through has this long list of tasks that we are basically going to be asking all of us to spend the next 10 years kind of hacking away at and accomplishing these goals. So broadly speaking, that is the structure and approach of the plan. I think that's where we are right now. What I would note, and the chairman pointed this out earlier, this draft has been active and live for a couple of months now. We have received a great number of comments. I would say 99.5% of the comments we've received are basically formatting, typographical, and factual. I think we referred to the history place as the meeting place at some point, and we shouldn't refer to it as the meeting place, it's the history place. There were questions of, just various dates when certain things happened, and maybe something happened in 2017 and not 2016, like we said. Most of the changes are of that nature, and so will be reflected in a soon to be completed update to this. But I will say that none of the comments to this point have been sort of, oh, you're heading in the wrong direction. Let's sort of change philosophy. Let's not worry about transportation, or let's not worry about open space. Most of the comments have been, oh, you misspelled somebody's name here or something like that. And so those changes will be incorporated. And so that really concludes my comments. I'm happy to answer questions or open it up to public participation.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Nice job. Yeah, Mr. We'll say this over and over again, but this has just been such a collaborative, good process. So I think transparency has been paramount, and I just appreciate everybody's opportunity to give input and the suggestions that we've had have been great. So what I'll do is I'll open it up to public comment. I have a public comment, but I'll just read it to the record because it's short. And then we'll open up to everyone else. So this is from Leslie Poulos from 5 Sleepy Hollow Road. So good afternoon. I cannot attend the public hearing on the Conservation and Development draft plan next week. I wanted to write this letter in support of the plan as drafted. It is a well thought out vision for our town. I support this plan, and I'm especially pleased to see that the section on housing includes a welcoming statement and a vision for different kinds of housing, ADUs, multifamily, etc., that will address affordability for all people in Columbia, from seniors to young families. Thank you for including this letter of support in your packet. So it was part of our regular packet. I just want to do that. So we'll open it up to the audience of citizens. If anyone would like to speak, please state your name and your address before you speak. Just be cognizant of time. We want to make sure that you get everything that you want to say out, obviously, and we'll be taking lots of notes. Speak up if you want to speak from your seat, or come up to the microphone if you would like. But who wants to start? Go ahead.
I think
We hear
my name is Mary Burke, and I want to make general comments and then specific questions. General comment number one is that I look at the book of food setting, and this is a process of collaboration and partnership. Having been on occasion, it was really true that advisory commission, as I do, to have the opportunity to work with the planning and zoning, not only planning and zoning, Savannah, John, Mary Kay, and all the members who we interact with. So I certainly want to build on that. Thank you for that partnership, because I think we've seen a very well balanced approach to the conservation and development plan for the next 10 years. So thank you very much. General question, and John, you may have alluded to it. You use planning technique to objectively look at a broad stroke image of the SWOT. What techniques did that include? Specific surveys, data?
So for the record, John Giskowski, if I use the word objectively, maybe that was not the right choice of words. Is it? Okay. I'm gonna look at that because that may not be the right phrase. Because it is, a SWOT analysis is meant to be collective wisdom. But I would say that's probably the wrong choice of words. It is a subjective exercise, because it is essentially drawn from survey, and it was also an exercise of the Planning and Zoning Commission, where we asked the commission and some of the public, what are our strengths? What are we? And I mean, there are certain objective things that are included. We have a objectively, quality school system. We have objectively high property values and objectively high income relative to the state and that sort of thing. So there are certain objective things. We objectively do not have public sewer and water, those sorts of things, but in people's impression of them is truly subjective. So that's probably not the correct word. Yeah.
Well, thank you. You may want to visit that.
Mhm.
Correct this plan as we move forward. I would like to put some on the spot and ask you to consider some things as a direct planning approach. One is kind of low density residential means local traffic. And John, you just got Route 66, Route 87. We have state roads that are incredibly busy. I wouldn't subjectively characterize that as low traffic, where we know we need to address it. We actually have some things trying to address it. So for consideration of opportunity, you may want to revisit that unless you have the data that says truly, even within the context of how we compare that for low density. But I think that high density traffic is food for thought.
Okay.
Second, school is high quality. And the first term that came to me when I read that was based on what did. If it's subjective, okay. Read that. But I'm about to go over here where we're addressing education, board of select, and capital budget, where there have been some data, and there is data out there from the United States for that first school may at best be average. So to say that our school may high quality data may have a different perspective. And the reason I say that is I don't want to miss opportunity to. And I think we can always education and learning. I participated in several groups training in business as well as in a school situation. And I think we've always got to be looking for, you may want to consider the data, so 2026 data that was just received, and consider perhaps opportunity. Now, in opportunities, we have high school, ran at my fall. Couldn't agree more. What I like to say for high schools, we've got strength goals. This is like my niece choosing her college. She's got 4 opportunities. She's got Oldham, E.M. Smith, now Graham, and William for Lincoln. Okay? That to me is strength of our education, that our children have choices in the opportunity. So food for thought as you move forward to the plan. And the third was, well, actually, I think Graham is a strength along 3 other high schools. So yeah, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity. And now
Anyone else like to make a comment from the audience?
Lumpy part of it before doing anything.
Okay.
My comment, first on the compliment here. I haven't read the latest version of the plan of the town. It was an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
For the need of it, I did look at the very early draft at that point. So I think it's wonderful what you've done. So my compliments to all of you. And this is coming from the president of the Columbia Lake Association. But what I want to say is I hope that somewhere in the chapter on economic development, we address, and there's people here and sitting on the board that have direct experience with this, make Columbia a business friendly community. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, oh, I would never try to do a business here again. It's going to be so painful and so difficult. We have to jump through so many hoops I would never do it. there's a perception out there that this is not the place to open business. And I think if we do nothing else in that chapter, again, I say this without reading, maybe it's already there. I think there's a thought about this that we want to convey that yes, we are receptive to opening businesses. Mary Holly told me, just to put an exclamation point on your comment there, 5% of our tax revenues come from commercial. 5%. That's all. No wonder we're fighting over our budget because it's 95% not from private residential, but that's the majority of our tax revenues. It's residential income. So even if we double it, even if we just double it 10%, that's not a lot of business in Columbia. It would help enormously with the tax base. So I'm here to make a pitch for whatever emphasis we place, because we think of ourselves, I know this from my childhood here, as a very rural community. We love that about Columbia, we love this farm, lots of open space and farms and all of that. But if we don't address this economic development issue and hit it well in the next 10 years, our conversations when the budget comes up are going to be even more painful than they are right now. So thank you very much for the opportunity to make that comment.
Thank you. Excellent. Next. Go ahead, Rhonda.
I think you can hear me, right? I'll make it brief. I'm on Road and I'm Chief Coalition University in Equity. And first of all, everybody's saying we really want to commend John and all of you for all the work done, and especially the thoughtful over the whole process and incorporate the plan. There's a lot like from next door and a variety of areas. I'm just sorry that more people aren't here because I don't think people really understand the value of this and the value of the work that we've all done. And I really want to thank you. We think that the plan really does present a vision of the town. It will really serve everyone well. We appreciate the inclusion of the welcoming statement from page 23 and particularly the housing development strategy. The planning zones have a lot of progress in making more housing opportunities affordable. And the strategies outlined in the plan really build on it. We really hope that this town will implement, especially the idea of a committee for affordable housing to work with developers, helping people in town aware of the zoning changes that we've made, that kind of thing. And we have one little suggestion. It falls under the kind of that category of just minor stuff, but I think it's important. In the housing chapter, one of the strategies called continued coordination with codes and commission on April, we will appreciate to better understand the changing needs of senior residents and other future housing needs. And we'd like to suggest the next current and future housing needs. It's a minor point, and I think it's kind of implied in the plan, but we think that focus on current housing is important not only for seniors, but as people mentioned, for young people who want to continue to live in town, and also for people who want to move to town. We really want to make sure that we're working now to attract other people to town, especially younger people, as our town sees in order for the town to continue to grow and grow. So it's just a minor point. I think that will help us focus on current flow. So thank you very much for including both in the plan, conservation development, and we really look forward to continuing to support any of the town's efforts to make more affordable housing.
Brad, 26 Lincoln Drive. So this is the third time I helped with the conservation development. And along the way, I reviewed what was going on what we've done in the past is brought it to the Conservation Commission and the Open Space Committee and shared that with John, so he has a lot of the minutia, so I won't go into that. But, a couple of key things, really, the future goals, the future chapter. In the past, we had quite a bit of information. This time, there's not as much as I'd like to see. So some of the, was, model pond makes up 30% of surface water. Columbia Lake is 7%. We really need to have somebody, something like how that is expanded to work with the state to control the use of things on, because that's that risk for everything else. In the graph that I saw, most of the time, when they refer to the operator trail, and really have three important parts of them. The operator trail, the airline state park trail, the model ponds for the park trail. And we need to work on building corridors to get people that live in town to easily access those, whether walking, bicycling, whatever. And at the same time, we need to be able to get people from the parks into the services. What else? Years ago, we talked about the downtown triangle, which was the historic district, the lake, and rec park. How do we get different corridors walking past high school? Can we put a sidewalk down the road here on 87? Can we open up a trail on the Laurel Lane, get you down to the hot road trip? Now that the town owns piece of land that connects the park to Route 66, we can actually open 5 lanes some trailers. It's just the way 60% of the trails in Connecticut are on 5 lanes. So a lot of that is pretty have to discuss all kinds of future things. One of the things that I noticed which made a change was the only time I saw questions had to do with strategy. We really didn't talk at all about the existing equestrian facilities in town. So I could mention different wineries, different farmers, different things. It feels like I think we should try to capture more of the existing equestrian and not just need to look at it. There was a lot of information about PH 190 farmland, making up 16% of the town. The PH 190 is really not protecting them. It's just the land is there, undergone, and they pay a lower tax rate. It's not conserved land at that point. And only 1.8% of the town protected from the ULA program. Well, I think that's most of it. Most of it. So thank you for letting us participate again this year. I think it went really well. I think there's different committees and commissions participating. We're working with John as always.
I had a quick question for you, because you had kind of some specific suggestions. So are those in writing that maybe share? I mean, we're taking notes and everything, but.
Yeah, no, I told John, I sent some stuff to John in writing about 4 weeks ago after the open space meeting, because I started going through it. And I tried to go back through it, and so I have a version that I'll give him after this, kind of page by page, because it was all over the place the first time I sent it. And as soon as I sent it, I said, oh, I forgot this, I forgot this.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
So if I may,
Yeah,
so Mr. Chair, just, okay, for the record, John Guskowski. The couple other things I would note is, per our statutory responsibilities, this plan draft was referred to the Capital Region Council of Governments for their comment. They returned comments to us last Thursday or Friday, I believe, basically sort of completely supportive of the plan. They had no comments or proposed edits. They found it in compliance with both the state and regional plans. So that box was checked. What? It's not true?
Yeah, I got one.
What? Okay. I don't remember what those were.
One of which was to change the word development.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but I think that reflects a misunderstanding of the statutory restraint on the use of the term character in zoning, not in the plan of conservation and development. I think they interpreted that wrong, frankly.
Okay, open up the commission. What do you guys think about this? Any comments you want to make? Two things. I've read through, comments in full. In fact, at the most recent, Conservation Agricultural Commission meeting, we voted to adopt his comments and recommendations in their totality as things we'd like to see addressed in the next draft of the plan of conservation. So I think that it would be helpful for us to get a copy of those comments, just so we have a copy of review and so we can see where the revisions ultimately end up influencing the final version. The next comment I had was a meeting or two ago when we were discussing POCD. I made a request to see the kind of raw survey data that was being incorporated into the document, the SWOT analysis, but I know in 2016 that data was made available as part of this process. So being able to actually refer back to the specific output of the survey that we received all those responses for would be just kind of a nice check to say, okay, this is exactly what Cal said in the survey, and here it is reflected in these specific points. And so we can make sure things are kind of weighted properly in terms of what the goal and things are most important. I think that survey by far is the biggest input the town is having into the development of POCD, just because it's probably touched by most people in town. And the third comment I had was regarding the comments from Prague about the word character. I made that comment myself at the last meeting, and I think that is something we should look a little bit more into, because I did notice that they sent similar comments that have made revisions to their POCDs in the last 5-6 years or so. And sure enough, the POCDs seem to be absent of character. So I don't know who's right or who's wrong was ultimately. I don't know if it's actually something we want to change, but I've seen that comment made other towns. So something maybe worth doing. So that's where I got.
So a couple comments, just something that we can all take into consideration. You know, we don't need to rush this, obviously. So, you know, we may find ourselves going another couple of weeks. What if that's the direction that we go, it probably would be very helpful to have your suggestions, and then how easy is it for us to get the raw survey data?
It's easy. I apologize, Nick. I had intended to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. So I don't think any of that would be an issue. That's right.
I would propose that could just be appended to the plan as an appendix with the raw survey.
Yeah.
With regard to continuing the public hearing, there's another somewhat important meeting going on down the hall that some people may be attending. Move this one, give them another chance to come in here. There isn't, big budget discussions being had. I think pretty good for us.
Confidence with the reporters.
Very good, Jay. I think one of the knowledge that John took on this project, we didn't have to farm it out to them, so they increased whatever we got in something that would have been it wasn't handled in-house, and I really appreciate it.
Well, you get what you pay for, Rick.
It's universally, it's kind of so.
Just something, I think I mentioned this to you before, it'll probably end up in numerous pages of acknowledgements. People that did participate in developing this. The last year we had a couple of pages. And it usually starts with the first selection. And goes down from there.
You may want to look at the last one, just kind of
Sure.
mirror it.
And I would just note, that the plan that you have in front of you, even if we all agreed that this language was perfect, is not the final document. Where I solicited through the selectman's office for updated pictures and things like that. So the format is going to be cleaned up, the document is going to be cleaned up, and it's going to look somewhat different. The focus of the public hearing is really about the content, but adding a survey appendix, adding an acknowledgement page, that's all what I would consider sort of formatting stuff that we can add. Sure.
Just got a quick one. It seems like every meeting we had discussion about improving the 87, 66, 687 sidewalks. Has the town ever reached out to any other town when it comes to government funding, when it comes to grants about doing MPG? The only reason I ask is I deal with MPGs every single day.
I'm sorry, an MTG?
It's what the state calls a major traffic.
Mhm.
So this is considered an MPG, same with 6 and 66. From my experience with doing this every day, most government grants are only going to cover 20 to 30%. And the town is usually on the hook for the rest of it. These major improvements for these intersections can go into the millions and millions of dollars. I was just curious if our town has reached out, any other town that has done something like this, look in.
Well, in the case of the intersections of 6 and 66 and 66 and 87, those are state roads.
Yeah.
The state owns those.
Yeah.
And it's upgrading is their responsibility. Obviously, the priority of that should the town wish to do something that's sort of maybe above and beyond what the state is recommending, the town might be on the hook for some funding. But broadly speaking, when it comes to state intersections, the municipal cost is usually pretty minimal, usually in the range of 10 to 20% at tops. Again, dealing with state facilities, and are run through the capital region, through our regional planning agency, which functions as our Metropolitan Transit Authority, to establish priorities and to distribute their state and federal funding through LOTSIP, LOSIP, STIP urban, STIP rural, for prioritizing and identifying those things. But broadly speaking, unless the town is looking to do some major traffic thing on a town road, most of the funds are available through state and federal sources. But I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are.
These would be considered minimal, if I should say that.
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking about the mix master and water.
What ideas that town would have to do something better than what's already in store here. I'm just curious if you guys have thought.
Yeah, they're under design consideration at the Capital Region Council of Governments right now. Like it's being handled basically. We've flagged them. The first selectman and the town manager and I have met with the DOT as well as Capital Region Council of Governments to flag those two intersections as our key state road priorities. And the state and the COG are sort of working on design considerations right now. It's sort of it's kind of at the level of the state or the town expresses its priority and its broad desires of what we'd like to see there. And then it's sort of up to the region and the state to try to figure out how to make the designs and the funding work.
Yeah, I know the anecdotal stuff is top of mind right now for the town. I think from the perspective of the POCD, definitely think it's helpful that that's putting focus on those things for sure.
Yeah.
So, and there's some assumptions that probably is in there. Obviously, I haven't set that specific piece of memory yet. But I think we need to review that as we go through this process.
Yeah, I was just like I said, the only reason I ask is because
like I said, I deal with it daily working for the state.
Mhm.
And I know some of these towns have been on the hook for a lot more than what they anticipated. If they said a job is 100,000, it probably usually turns out for.
Yeah.
Same thing with sidewalks, dealing with it with the town of North right now. Government funding for sidewalks, $1 million job has turned into $6-7 million. Towns on the hook for the rest of that money. It's just, those are things that
Yeah, absolutely.
would be a concern. I mean, we can't pass a budget with what we just did. I'm explaining to the town, people, you know, that you need $5 million to finish the project.
Right.
And the biggest concern too was who's responsible for maintaining.
Right.
Because it's gonna be a county sidewalk on state property.
Absolutely.
The state will not maintain it.
They do not.
The town going to pay to maintain that, or are you gonna put it on the residents in front? Those are all just major things that some of these towns are learning the hard way with sidewalks right now.
I'm told that's a major reason why we don't have many sidewalks in town.
I would just hate to see our county.
Yeah, on the hook for this. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Any other comments? Anything from the audience that anyone wants to bring up again?
Is she?
Oh,
No, she's not. No, that's the cursor. She's not actually raising her hand.
so no one online. wants to make a comment. Yeah, go ahead.
I just a quick question, John, to, was speaking, I think, that when we talk about historic homes and Columbia, what is the thinking about this? Are we thinking about a destination for them, or is there a district? We have older homes all over.
Yeah, we haven't. I don't believe we made specific recommendations on designating any National Register or local historic districts. There's a National Register district here, right? Which doesn't have any regulatory strings attached to it. We did not make any recommendations about establishing any local historic districts. I think the recommendation I use as an example is a demolition delay, which would basically allow for not necessarily prevention of removal of historic structures, but delay for the purposes of providing opportunity for adequate documentation of the resource before it is gone, and possibly for reconsideration or acquisition if that comes up. But yeah, I think most of the recommendations we made relative to historic facilities and historic structures are more in terms of public education, financing support for people who wish to retain and restore historic facilities, and then to do things like a demolition delay. I don't think we made significant recommendations beyond that at this time.
Last call for any comments. Okay, we're at the point where we need to either close or schedule to continue the public hearing. I think we probably should continue just to give everybody time to review everything and then comments from tonight, incorporating the discussion. Is there anyone that could agree with that or have any additional comment? Is that a motion? I don't have a motion yet. I'm just seeing if everybody wants to come through. Okay, so Walt makes a motion. Second that, any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? All right, no opposed. Okay, thanks. So that was unanimous. So we'll go ahead and we will continue the public hearing. Next opportunity for a regular meeting public hearing is between 8 7 p.m. So we will get more input and go from there.
And I'll have a revised chapter or a revised document by then.
Yeah, you can say whatever notes we have and whatever changes we want next time and distribute that so that everybody has that. Okay, we're gonna move on to unfinished business, which we just extended the public hearing, so there's nothing related to business under the 6.1 conservation development, and we will meet again at the meeting for the extension of the public hearing. There is no new business on the agenda. So we'll move on to item number 8,
regulation revisions. So, Jason, Walt, myself, Rick, and Nancy met a week or two ago. I think, that one last time we met. We did toss some ideas around, about subdivisions, aligning some subdivision regulations with broader zoning regulations. We also have some statutorily required changes from the state of Connecticut that we have to incorporate into our regulations. We did talk briefly about economic development too, which I agree with you is, and I think everyone agrees is something that we need to focus on as well. That didn't mean any specific ideas or changes, yes. So we're really in the conceptual phase. Did anyone have something or anything else? Okay, so we're going to continue the meeting. Our next subcommittee meeting will be scheduled for June 16th at 1 p.m. We're just going to continue that discussion. John, are there any communications, any other reports?
Nothing additional on my side.
No, okay, thank you. Commissioner, open discussion, anything wants to bring up? Okay, audience or citizens for anything that we haven't talked about? All right, make it easy. There is no executive session, so I will just need a motion to adjourn. Second, Nancy, all in favor? All right, thanks everyone. Appreciate your time. The meeting.
Thank you, Mark.
That's okay.